Yesterday I tried to socialize again. This is probably the 100th time I've done so. Outside my dorm, around a red table, where there are usually 6 to 7 people sitting there at any given moment, on Friday night. And I realized that it was easily the most unsatisfying, unproductive, boring type of socializing I could ever imagine. Not to mention pretentious, because you had people talking about mostly nothing, and if they were talking about something like a philosophy, they weren't really talking about it. They were trying to impress each other by throwing out names like Heidegger, Derrida, and Foucault, but they weren't really talking about their lived experience. They couldn't resist using the words of other philosophers because they could not make their own philosophy at that moment. I think the only way to philosophize is to let go of right and wrong. It's to let go of all of the other writings you might have read, all the other academic writings that seem right, and to have the courage to think, to have the courage to say, this is how my lived experience might have been. I don't even know if this is my lived experience, but to talk from somewhere in the depths of yourself, not something purely here in your mind, and not something that you've already read. Those things are starting points. They should get you to think about your own philosophy, but they should not enter you as if you are a receptacle for that knowledge. Philosophy should be, if you're going to discuss philosophy with your friends, it should be something that is like intimate circle. Um, you're sharing your lived experience. So it should be personal, not pretentious. It should be speculation. Of course, there's rhetoric and reason, but simply talking about everyone's names that you've read in school to seem interesting and cool is doing nothing, and it's not satisfying, and it's completely empty. Not to mention, well, my battery is getting low. Not only that, I don't think people have to talk about philosophy all the time, but the older I get, the harder it is for me to find people who will hang out with me. The older I get, the harder it is to find people who are willing to be children. And when I say children, I mean you can be intelligent and creative, and that's childlike because you're willing to step outside the boundary of what you've done already. People think they're stepping outside of the boundary of what they've done already because they listen to a new band or to a new piece of Mozart's concerto, or because they're trying a new tobacco or a new alcohol. But that's not stepping outside the boundary at all, because each snapshot looks the same. The snapshot of you listening to a new band on a Friday night looks the same as you listening to a band on another Friday night. It's the same snapshot. You talking about something you've read in school like Heidegger without really understanding, or simply talking about it just so that you have a name to say, looks the same as the way it did last week if I were to take 2 snapshots. And I think by criticizing what I see, I can start to live outside of that thing that is suffocating me. Because until recently, I have not been able to articulate why I feel this way. What if people socialize by singing together or drumming together, right? Do you know how bonding that experience could be for people? What if people bonded by painting something together or climbing something together or talking to a stranger together, approaching a stranger together and asking him about his life? What if people socialized that way? What would change? All of these people around me are talking about these philosophers now, trying to cultivate an intellectual discussion now. But it's easy to see by the way that they're doing it that this discussion will end in a few years when they're no longer in college or graduate school. It will end because these people, whether they know it or not, are growing up, and not in the good way. They think they're young because they're drinking and causing, making loud noises at night. I sound like an old woman. They're drinking and, carrying on, but it's easy to see that is a stepping stone from childhood and adolescence to adulthood. You can't do it differently. You can't cut out of the mold, or you can't escape the mold. No matter how many quirky bands you listen to, how many philosophers you read, you cannot escape the mold if you don't simply walk out of it. You can think about it all day long. You can listen to it. You can listen to someone not following the mold. You can dream about it. But that's not enough, is it? Because every time you dream about it, it looks the same as when you dreamt about it last time. But if you start doing things differently, then it's just going to fulfill you, I think. And I think it'll fulfill me if I can begin to do this. This video is inspired by a video that I watched by the caster, and it helps me to rephrase these things in order to start. For the past few years, I have been starting. It's as if I came to college and just realized all these things that I just need to break away from. And so every few weeks, I would do something strange. And slowly, I've felt I'm not myself anymore. My life has become so bizarre because I've done things that others wouldn't do, like talking to strangers, listening to them talk about their lives, talking to bums every now and then, asking them about their life. What does it feel like? Walking barefoot just for a change, or trying to create something new, trying to argue. Arguing helps you understand yourself in your own life. If only people weren't so lethargic as they grew older. If people played hide and seek every day, then they would never get old. If you don't want to get old, just don't.